Ay, 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 ugayam, galayaman, ugayam, galayaman.
In the islands of the Visayan, the prominent means of industry was agriculture, or simply food and farming. The staple crops were rice, millet, taro, yams, wild yams, sago, and bananas that are grown in Sweden, or what we all know as kainin. Rice was grown everywhere and was the preferred food. However, due to the limitations, root crops were therefore the most common food. In earlier times, the supply of rice was not abundant, that datus equalized themselves with their peasants, and Filipinos resulted to human trafficking and slavery to feed themselves. In the Visayas, rice was prominent as it was humay, tipasi, or paray. Kaingin farming called attention due to change in weather and the varying exposure to monsoon winds that differentiate the best time for agriculture. For the preparation of kaingin farming, an area occupied by trees, shrubs, bamboos, vines, and small plants should be cleared in such ways such as known to people like balasubas, talasokas, kanat, higabon, guro, haras or harabay, and hadhad. If the field is ready, the omens were called to determine fruitfulness and sacrifices to be offered in bamboo poles or timbayan. Row of men strode across the field to punch holes, followed by women who dropped 5 to 6 seeds in each holes. Once the crop was planted, kaingin had to be protected from birds, wild boars, and deer through little protection that could be taken against a swarm of locusts like tarluk and saruk. Bugawan or hulayag, known as field huts, should be manned daily. Harvesting is accompanied by strict religious taboos, and this was done by women by ritually cutting a prescribed amount at a specific hour of the day, and men could not join them. Rice was ripped panicle by panicle, leaving the stalk standing with a sickle or salat, and for example, sipol, knife of women, and disong, a knife of women that is small and used for cutting threads and betel nuts. Second only to rice was millet or dawa. It could grow in poorer soil, yielded more, and ripened sooner. Sorghum or batar was also a plant and eaten as a cereal, and also job steers or arlay. Whether rice or millet was the preferred food, root crops were actually the most common, the Visayan staple.
Dioscoreas were the most widespread fruit crop growing both wild and domestic in 4 or 5 different species with dozens of varieties. The most common was ubi or Dioscorea alata, while abobo was Dioscorea bolifera, a species so called from the fruit-like little bulb which grew on the stem and were cooked and eaten rather than the root itself. The domestic varieties were planted in hard soil, too poor for rice and too dry for taro, in holes opened with a stout planting stick. A pole was driven into the ground alongside with the plant for the stem to climb. Just as important as any domestic variety was the wild yam called karutkol or kabong. Sago, another starchy staple food, was a kind of flour made from the inner trunk of the sago palm or tumbia, or of a number of other palms like nipa or buri. For example, ambulong, pugahan, or sahol. Bananas and plantains, boiled like rice or yams when still unripe, were also a staple food crop. Spaniards regularly praised the flavor and variety of Visayan bananas. Like Spaniards, Visayans ate ripe ones as fruit or between meal snacks, especially the fragrant little ones called tudlong binokot or ladyfingers. Though unlike them, probably not sprinkled with cinnamon or doused with wine.
Habok, to cultivate the soil for planting with a bolo. Bakar, to till the soil. Bunyag, to water plants by sprinkling. Damos or napon, a field of root crops. These are just some of the Visayan farming terms used during the 16th century. Kamote, another root crop that made noise during this century, had spread to the islands of Polynesia and as far as south as New Zealand under the name Kumara. The Spaniards brought it to the Philippines and called all Philippine root crops kamotes. Other natives and people like the Iberians call all roots in general nabu, which is a Spanish word for turnip. The Portuguese call yams inyamis, which is an African word meaning eat. Columbus, later on, called the sweet potatoes he found in Santo Domingo ñames. However, explorers came after him soon learned the native Taino word batata, and later in Mexico, the Aztec word camote, which was Hispanized as camote. Both words subsequently became a convenient way to refer to root crops for which there were no equivalent in Spanish. The camotes which were brought from Nueva España or Mexico are really what they call batatas in Spain. But these differ in size, being generally much larger. There are red ones and white. The camote is the refuge of the poor. These roots are rather sweet, but of little sustenance, and good only for wind. Hunting. Visayans hunted with dogs and net. The dogs called ayam and the hunters mangangayam. Mangangayam predicts the dog if it will be a good hunter by examining the teats at birth. Visayan dogs were small but fearless, quick enough to avoid a boar's tusks and fierce enough to grab one by the ankle and hang on until mangangayam arrived to spear it. Hunters stayed out many days, sleeping in huts called hukdong. Part of the hunter's first catch was offered up on a tree stump altar to Banwanon, the mountain-dwelling spirit. All animals whose flesh was considered fit for consumption, for example, deer or civet cat, were referred to as baboy or pig.
Most fishing was done close inshore, so there was little incentive for deep-sea fishing. It was often done at night because schools of fish could be seen better or because they could be attracted to torches in boats. A variety of ways of catching fish includes using weirs or corals to lead the fish into nets or traps. Rattan baskets were also set in creeks. Roots, barks, or berries of trees called tubli were squeezed into the water to catch the fish. A hook and line called rambos was also used, as well as harpoons made in different styles like kalawit or isi, barbed like an arrowhead, sikap, a two-pronged fork, sarapang, a real trident with 3 or more points, and bontal, a heavier one for catching the yong. They also used different nets like salabaw, a large 4-cornered net lowered by a simple derrick mounted by a raft, laya, a casting net or bedding nets, woven like loose cloth, and many more. Seafood was the main source of protein in the Visayan diet, but pigs and chickens were also raised not just for consumption but also for sacrificial offerings. Since deer and wild hogs were also called baboy, domestic pigs were distinguished as sohong. They were reported to be cleaner than a dog and was called a princess. Cats were also present in houses to keep it free from rats, and if a civet cat could be caught young enough to tame, it was made an even better mouser. Household dogs were provided with special ladders to come and go as they please, and monkeys also acted as watchdogs. Goats were rare in Samar and Cebu but common in Mindanao, raised for trade in the Semirara Islands between Panay and Mindoro. Horned cattle or cows were also introduced late in the century from China and Mexico. The absence of carabao is something that is noteworthy. The beast was found wild and feral in Luzon from Bicol to the Ilocos, in all of which places it was called nowang or a nowang, but here in Visayas it was called carabao. Visayan cooking was done on a clay kalan stove or 3 stones in an open hearth. There were 3 other traditional styles or methods of bagid or making fire by friction, and it was by pulling a band of rattan back and forth around a split stick, by rubbing a knife-shaped piece of bamboo along another, or by rotating a wooden rod between the palms. Staple foods were boiled. Viands were frequently fried in coconut oil, and both meat and fish were barbecued or smoked as tapa. Steam in sections of bamboo were all kinds of food, pailao in general, sakol if rice flour with grated coconut, and lot-lot if broken out afterwards. Seafood was the main source of Visayan protein and was preferred to meat. All meat was forbidden in pregnant women, and so was shark flesh. Fish was preserved and marketed as sun-dried daing or split open or salted before selling as barol. Honey was also an important food due to the many activities connected with it. It was eaten as food together with white grubs it contained or made into confections or sauces. Rice cakes boiled in a little wrapper of coconut leaves were called puso after the banana's flour. The normal way to eat rice was to squeeze a fistful into a lump. Though Visayans did not make cane sugar, they obtained an unrefined brown sugar called gulamay or chancaka in Spanish from palm sap. Salt was served in rock-hard lumps to be given a few sharp blows over the food or stirred a few turns in liquids. Meals were served on low tables about 20 centimeters high or directly on house floor on large leaves. In meal feasts or drink fasts, food was taken casually and in small quantities to leave time for talk and wine.
Drinking etiquette. The Visayans did not drink alone nor appear drunk in public. Drinking was done in small groups or in social gatherings where men and women sat on opposite sides of the room and any passerby was welcome to join in. Women drank more moderately than men. Drinking etiquette began with agda or exhorting some person or diwata to take the first drink. Gasa was to propose a toast to somebody's health, usually of the opposite sex. Salabat was a toast in which the cup itself was offered or even carried from one house to another for this purpose. Sumsum was any food taken with wine. Drinking was more commonly called as pagampang. It was said that drinking helps men propose with eloquence and decide with all fairness. Number 1. Tuba. Tuba was made from the sap of wild trees and was usually strengthened and given the red color by the addition of ground tungog or luwaan bark. The tuba made from coconut palms were considered better and were more profitable in trade. Number 2. Kabarawan. Kabarawan was the wood whose bark was decocted to produce the beverage. The decoction was further boiled to half its volume, mixed with an equal volume of fresh honey, and left to ferment naturally to become a smooth, strong liquor. Number 3. Intus. Sugarcane juice was extracted with a simple one-man process. The juice was boiled, preferably in a cast iron baong that held as much as 15 liters, to half its volume. It was then sinubaw and a small bundle of kabarawan bark was added as seasoning. When cooled, it was stored in Chinese porcelains if available and left to ferment and age as intus or kilang. Number 4. Pangasi. Basi was the mashed cooked rice already leavened with tapay, which was placed in the jar to produce the liquid pangasi. It was left to stand until it became strong and sour. Pangasi drinking began with formality and ceremony. Number 5. Alak. Alak or alaksir was anything made with still. The still or alakan was made of a hollow tree trunk and 2 Chinese vats. The first 2 liters were the strongest and the best, which was called the lisay, which means pure or first class.